And I'm also just like violently afraid, which is strange because I was held up at knife point in Panama, and it was much more like active, where I was trying to find a way out of it, and I'm kind of problem solving, and getting the shotgun pressed against me felt much more like I'm playing a game of tag as a kid, and someone opens the bush and they can tag you or they don't. Like, it's up to them. And it was just blackness, They got me.
Hello and welcome to Two Beers Till Takeoff, the podcast inspired by conversations overheard at the airport bar. Join Phil as he grabs a couple of beers and chats with interesting people from around the world, sharing expert knowledge and hilarious stories that you won't find in your guidebook. So pull up a stool and get ready for an adventure as we explore worlds of travel and beyond with Two Beers Till Takeoff.
4 hours in a Taliban headquarters.
I had dog meat in Laos.
Was it golden retriever?
Smack a dirty old smooch on our beautiful fish right here.
He didn't die, but he fell down the side of the bathtub.
Hello and welcome to Two Beers Till Takeoff. My name is Phil, and to start us off, I'd like to thank Safety Wing for partnering with us on this episode. Today's guest is someone I admire for their amazing courage, discipline, love of life, and travel. This man totaled 28,000 miles through 6 continents and 38 countries over a 7-year span on his walk around the world. I'd like to welcome to the show this absolute legend who was recently signed by the Philadelphia Eagles as they're walking back, and here to talk about his new book, The World Walk, Tom Tercich. What's up?
Thanks for having me, Phil. Man, I don't know if I could take those hits I know I couldn't take the hits on the football field. No interest in that, but I'll watch it.
Yeah. What's going on with you, buddy?
Relaxing. Now that the book is finished with the editing, I just handed in the absolute final draft maybe like 2 weeks ago. That was dominating my days, doing the editing for 8-10 hours a day, something like that. Now that that's done, my days are pretty open. So I'm doing some speaking engagement, stuff like that. And, I practice this talk that I give, and that takes about an hour of the time. And I work on this little Substack. So I do a little bit of writing here and there. And then I play some pickleball, going to CrossFit. So it's pretty easy, good life right now. Got to figure out what the next project is.
Nice. Well, I think it's only natural to kind of talk. Let's kind of get into your book right off the bat. The World Walk. When is it available? I know you can pre-order it now.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's available October 8th is when it's coming out with Skyhorse Publishing. It's a book, the memoir that spans basically my life since I was 17. My friend Anne-Marie passed away. Kind of woke me to life and the inevitability of death. And then this world walk that I did for 7 years and all the adventures I had on it. And it was very interesting going back and working on this book because it's, there's a lot that you want to say, but also you just can't say everything. And so it was a real challenge and a real joy and pleasure to try and string together this narrative of growth that I experienced going from this suburban idiot, basically having no exposure to the world, to someone who had a lot of exposure to the world and knew how to handle himself abroad and handle different cultures and work my way through places with different languages and all these different challenges. And so it was really fun going through that. And then also going back through my journals and the photos and the videos and Google Street View and going through all this stuff to give the book as much richness and depth as possible. And I'm really happy with the result. It's 2 years of working. My editor's very excited for it. The publisher's very excited for it. I think it's a great book, and I think it's a great adventure. After 7 years going every day, you get a lot of stories, and there's a lot of stories I couldn't tell, just because it just didn't fit into the narrative. But the stories that are in there, I think, are fantastic, and it's a good adventure.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to reading it. It's I don't know where I came across your page or your story, but it's so inspiring. It's like sometimes, you have those tough days at the office and you're like, oh, I wish I could just go and you did it. So it's like, it's so cool to kind of talk to you and it's kind of been a theme. I don't know why, but I've had a lot of people who have done, segments in the world where they've gone from Seattle down to Argentina, back up to Alaska, or like through the States, or you know what I mean? But like, it feels like the world walk is epic. It's the trumpable. You can't get better than that.
Yeah, it's the ultimate. And I've done, I think I'm like fourth on like the length distance walked, maybe fifth out of, there's 10 of us who have walked around the world. So a pretty small crew. I'm fourth or fifth, but there was like a Japanese guy who I'm friends with, and then a Canadian guy who's much older. I haven't talked to. They walked, both of them, for like 11 years, and they did everything. And both of them did all of Africa, and I didn't do all of Africa because it's like 3 years. While Africa is enormous, there's all these visas and all this. So there's guys who have just spent like a decade of their life. So I'm up there, but there's a couple guys, and like Carl Bushby, kind of my idol, this guy who inspired me to walk around the world. He's been walking for over 20 years, and honestly, it sounds exhausting. I mean, I was out there for 7 years, and I was exhausted by the end. And it's a fantastic life, but it's also really challenging. And you're out in the elements, and you're on your own, and you just want sometimes a hot shower and bed and some friends around to get a drink with. And you don't have that. You have other things that are fantastic, but you don't have those comforts. So there's a couple guys out there who are even more mad than I was.
Well, that's interesting. I actually have a question around that. What constitutes a walk around the world? Like, is there an actual guideline for what that is, or is it just kind of going from one end to the other?
I think it's kind of like, when you see it kind of thing, because there's a couple people who've done it in like 3 years, and they did 3 continents, and they did it pretty quickly. But if you look at I think there are guidelines for running around the world, not for walking. But
people that run around the world?
I guess so. I have no interest in that. Yeah, it's insane. And so that is 4 continents, coast to coast, and then you do the circumference of the Earth in distance. So that's, I think, probably would be official, but also I don't think anyone really cares that much if you're, if you're 1,000 miles short or whatever it is. But it's kind of, when you see it kind of thing.
Yeah. So before you left on your adventure, I watched that first video that you posted. You mapped out your trip. So in the end, looking back, how did that route change? And can you talk about some of the unforeseen challenges along the way?
Yeah, it changed a good amount towards the end. Initially I thought it was going to be 5 years, and it was 7 years total time, but it actually ended up being about 5 years of actual walking. But towards the end, so when I was in Central Asia, COVID hit. And initially my plan was to walk up to Mongolia through Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and then down the coast of Australia. And that got all shot because of the COVID restrictions. And I waited a year, countries remained closed. But the rest of my route, which was from New Jersey down to Panama, and then from Bogota, Colombia to Montevideo, Uruguay, briefly a boat to Antarctica, and then basically down Europe to Spain, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, up Italy, along the Mediterranean, across Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. That is actually all like part of the original route. And I think I was pretty lucky in how I designed it, or at least I was pretty smart in how I designed it. But I also think I got a little lucky because I just didn't know that much about the world. But I basically figured out the route on what are the countries I can get into without a visa, or what is the easiest route without needing a lot of visas. And so the route that I walked held up pretty well to the original, but then it fell apart towards the end. And, just because of COVID, and obviously
you can't plan for a global pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, it was. I would have loved to have done Kazakhstan and Mongolia in particular. I really wish I had been able to get to Mongolia and walk across that. It would have been an incredible challenge, though, because it's one of the least densely populated countries on Earth, and you need to send supplies ahead, and you have to have a guide. Pretty much, I mean, I would have had a guide aligning things. And so that would have been its own challenge. And then you're also very far north, so you have a very small window to actually walk it. And maybe one day I'll get there. But at that point, by the time I was in Kyrgyzstan, I had been walking for 6.5 years. And I wasn't going to wait around another year after already waiting basically a year for the world to open. So, all right, we'll call it at that. And so I flew to Seattle and then walked Seattle back to New Jersey.
Wow. That's wild. I still want to dig deeper into that story, but I've got a surface question that I talked about in the intro, and I think we have to talk. We can't not address it. So I'm a crazy sports fan. Like I went to the Amazon in the forest and literally watched a football game. I found a bar that was playing the Bengals and I think the Dolphins. There's a bunch of weird bugs on the wall. Like I remember being in a cab in Sao Paulo, Brazil, being on the street, and I saw the Bears were playing the Lions on Thursday night, and I'm like, stop the cab, we're getting out. Like, I am a degenerate sports fan. In a few of your videos, I actually laughed because you said you were getting a hotel, not because you were walking 30 plus kilometers a day in sweltering heat, pushing a cart, but rather to watch your Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
So when did your relationship begin with the Eagles, especially as a guy from New Jersey? And is Jalen Hurts the guy to do it?
I mean, we saw how Jalen Hurts played in the Super Bowl. It's as good as a Super Bowl as we could possibly have, basically. So, he can play at the highest level.
Where's Nick Foles when you need him?
Yeah, exactly. The hitman coming in and winning. I mean, the Eagles, I think I really got into the Eagles probably early into high school. And, it's the kind of thing where it's just in the air. It's just in the water. In Philadelphia, it's like this gas that you breathe and it poisons you, and then you're just destroyed by it forever. And, it's fantastic. I love it. And there's this great culture around it. And when I was walking, I mean, I don't care about any of the other football teams. If the Bears were playing the Bengals, I could care less. I had to see the Eagles. And so I would stop. I mean, all through Central America, I remember stopping in bars or in Mexico and watching it with this group of locals. And, they lost the Cowboys, and I'm being so upset. And they gave me this big, massive free cocktail because my team had lost. And then, and then like in the deserts of Peru, I remember getting hotels just so I could watch the game. And I had, barely enough service to kind of eke out watching this game on my phone. And yeah, I did that everywhere. And it also was like a nice way to kind of break things up and keep me connected to being back home. And, with my best friends, that's like one of the primary things we talk about is the Eagles. And so when I was out there, wherever I was, Sunday would come around or Monday, and I'd be messaging, with my best friends about the game, or with my family about the game, or my grandparents about the game. So it was a nice way to stay connected to back home. It's, in this existence, which was just so different and bizarre and challenging, it was nice to have that respite for, at least a few weeks a year, a few months a year.
Something to look forward to, especially when you're doing something for 7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was some sort of reliability kind of thing and some sort of connection back to where I'm from.
Nice. I've actually seen a game. I was driving through, I left East Canada and I drove solo through the States and up to Western Canada to go work. And along the way, I was just trying to find as many games, baseball, football, whatever I could find, hockey. And I basically had the chance to go see the Eagles, and by myself, I found a ticket for like $150 on the 50-yard line.
Wow.
And they were playing the Lions, I remember. So it was like the Dream Team era. Mike Vick,
yeah.
Sean McCoy, and they were playing the Lions with Matt Stafford and Megatron, of course. And anyways, got to see the hospitality of people of the region, and just like they brought me back to their tailgate after Eagles lost, but they still had a tailgate. They invited me, just me by myself with this family that was sitting next to me, and then out comes, they were just in the parking lot, and out comes this like white Escalade, and I'm like, who's that? Like, they're coming right towards us. He's like, oh, that's Nate. I'm like, Nate who? He's like, oh, Nate Allen. I'm like, Nate Allen, who was playing? He's like, yeah. He's like, he trains with my son. He does MMA or whatever. So he came in and just, his first game, got to meet a player. It's pretty cool.
Wow, that's incredible. That's awesome. I'm glad they're such a good host. I mean, if you're wearing the wrong jersey, it could be a very bad time in Philly. So I'm glad you were aligned with the crowd.
Yeah. So it was a pretty special moment, and it warmed my heart to prepare me for the Patriots losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. So
you had enough winning. You'll get through that.
Yeah.
So do you watch? Are you a big hockey fan as well? Then
yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Canada's huge on hockey. Obviously, that's number one, but football is close too, I'd say, and then baseball or basketball probably be third.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I haven't gotten into hockey as much. The Flyers have never really been that great in my lifetime, or I was too young when they were very good. I love going to the games. Like hockey, I feel like it's one of the best live sports. And there's I'm in Cincinnati now with my girlfriend, and right across the bridge is this like AAA or AA team, and the tickets are like $10, something like that, and it's $2 beers. And so we'll go to that every once in a while, and the hockey's not good.
Yeah.
It is entertaining.
Well, it's the only sport that you can legally punch someone with a bare fist, right?
Yeah.
So
it's entertainment.
It's entertainment. So listen, Tom, I want to, you've talked about, I've listened to some of your interviews. You've talked about some of the why, but I kind of want to get to know Tom before Tom left on his trip, because I think people see the journey that you did and they say, you know what, this is something I could never do. So I did a bit of digging here, but Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Is it a quote like that inspired a young Tom Tursich to give a speech in communications class announcing that I will walk around the world?
It was something like that. Yeah, I would say it was a lot of the great poets, Thoreau, Whitman, Frost. I remember after Emery died, someone played Dead Poet Society in class, and that's what really provided this counterpoint to the inevitability of death that I was looking for, was Carpe Diem, seize the day. And so that introduced me to kind of that whole way of thinking, and reading Leaves of Grass by Whitman, which is just like a wonderful sort of ode to life and the beauty of being alive. And then The Road Not Taken by Frost is just an incredible poem about just living the life that you think that you're meant to live. And Aurelius was probably, I don't know when I discovered Marcus Aurelius, but it's like by far my favorite, I guess, philosopher king. And I have meditations by my book, like by my bedside, and I've read it probably 20 times. And on the road I had it, and whenever I'm in like a more difficult moment, that's what I turn to. And I think there's this, for me, the stoicism of Aurelius just seems very effective in just its bluntness towards the facts of life, which is like you're going to die, and then you're going to be forgotten, and then everyone who remembered you is going to be forgotten, and life will, you have this little window. That's how it. And you try and be a good person, a good man, improve the world a little bit, expand your knowledge. And so I think it was just like the best guide I could find on how to live. And I haven't found a better one.
That's it sounds like you had a really good base. Like you were well read, you kind of, it's when you're a young person, you look for answers, and sounds like you definitely got a lot of those answers in those books.
Yeah, I was never like a great student. I was a fine student, and I didn't really care about reading that much. And it wasn't really until even like senior year of college that I really discovered like the joy of reading and knowledge. And until then, it's just kind of like you're on this track. And I grew up in, a good school district. And so just by virtue of that, I got like a decent education, even if I wasn't the greatest student. I didn't try that hard. And then going to college, because that's what everyone did and that's what you're supposed to do. Or then that organic love of learning took a little bit longer.
So listen, a person gains so much insight on everything from, one, achieving an amazing goal that you set out to achieve. You walked around the world, you spend so much time alone, in your head with your own thoughts and having so much time to think. It's such an underrated thing it's almost like an opportunity, because you get to think about life, you get to think about yourself. So with that, what are some things that you've learned about the world, humanity, yourself on this journey? And can you share any wisdom you've realized through your grand meditation?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the way you frame the question. When you're walking, you are just with your thoughts all the time. That's like, I think, along with the physical aspect of walking and just the joy of just being outside and moving, and you get that physiological, that great feeling of walking. The benefit of it is all that time that you spend with yourself. And I think a lot of the benefits from walking are really subtle and not initially recognized. And for me, who grew up in, a very easy existence and never had any serious trauma, even for me, there was stuff that I needed to resolve that I didn't really think needed resolving. And then you start walking, and then all these little things crop up. And after 4 months, 5 months, a year and a half, you realize just like how much clearer you are and how much more relaxed with yourself that you are, just by virtue of kind of looking at yourself and your life from every which angle over and over and over again. So I cannot recommend going for some walks enough. And it's also, like I said, the walking is really subtle. And it took me probably 4-5 months to even notice and I like start to recognize how it's working in the background. And now I notice it all the time when I go out walking. I notice that your brain kind of turns down the certain pathway, and these thoughts start coming up that you're able to, weed or turn over, however it is. But when you're not walking all the time, you don't really notice it. It's a hard thing to recognize this like healing, this processing, this clarifying that's happening when you're walking. And everything today is all about getting stuff done. It's about that dopamine hit. It's about being entertained,
distracted.
Yeah. It's just like that constant dopamine hit. You always got to be doing something. You got to be productive in some way. You got to be listening to a podcast. If you're in between two things, you open your phone and you get on social media and whatever it is, you're trying to like fill in every gap. And walking doesn't hit you like that. It's not that same immediate feeling, that immediate directness. It's very quiet. And I think it also, like you said, it provides some space for yourself, which is increasingly rare today. And when you have that space, you're able to work through things. And so, if I also think it's just a great therapy. I think therapy itself, I also psychology, philosophy studies in college. And, I think therapy is fantastic. I think you should go to therapy if you need therapy. But I also think walking is a way to kind of do this like ongoing meditation therapy with yourself. So if you have interest in that, if you have interest in clarifying yourself, I couldn't recommend walking enough. And then as far as like the latter part of your questions, from, something that I learned, or, some wisdom from walking all this time, I talk about this on, all the time, or on a lot of podcasts, because it's true, is that I think the primary thing that I learned is just how small people are. And what I mean by that is, it's a difficult thing to convey, but what I mean by that is that it's very easy to get wrapped up in your own perspective and your own wants and your hopes and your dreams and even other people, and like assign to them this absolute control of their life, that they were destined to be this type of person or this type of person, and then blame them for that or praise them for that. And in reality, when you walk around the world, or when you're out in the world a lot, you realize like a guy who was born in a village in Turkey is probably just going to be a villager in Turkey. Maybe he'll end up being Erdogan and in charge of the country, but probably he'll just be, a farmer or a herder or whatever it is. And, in Panama, a young girl born in, on the outskirts of Panama City, whatever, she is much more influenced by the education system she has around her, the political system, the economic opportunities. There's all these massive forces around you, which basically are the determining factors of your life. And you can control this little sliver of it, your attitude towards things. And I mean, even for myself, when you spend all this time with yourself and you're reflecting on all these influences that you have, if I hadn't had a very close friend die at 16, I would not have been walking around the world. It just happened at a very timely moment. It impacted me greatly. Then if someone didn't play Dead Poet Society, who knows what would have happened, because I was in this fog for months and I didn't know how to answer that question. And that movie came and hit me at the right point. And then my sponsor, Philadelphia Sign, was incredibly fortunate. They knew Anne-Marie, who passed. I went to school with one of the owner's sons. And so, I have a friend in Iran who has walked around the country, 9 times, and his dream is to walk around the world, but it's never going to happen because he has an Iranian passport and I have an American passport.
Yeah.
So there's just all these very big factors. And so the idea that people are small and that you are small is sort of like counterintuitive, or it doesn't seem very useful, but it is in the way that you're able to liberate yourself, and you're able to give yourself more grace, and you're able to give other people more grace. And it also allows you to just live your one life and be okay with that. And I think today, especially too, along the social media aspect and this like constant information dump that we're in, you open your phone, you can see a friend on vacation all the time, or you can see, beautiful places all the time. And you're thinking, man, why aren't I doing this? Why am I not this? I should be doing something better right now. And you're constantly seeing the highlights of everything, of every place, of every person. That's all you're seeing. And you feel this pressure to do everything, to be everything to everyone all the time. But when you realize just how tiny you are, it's much easier to accept that you are just one small human, and that's okay. And you can live this life, and that's okay. And do your best in it, and be nice to people, and try and learn a little bit. Maybe give something back if you can, and just be okay with that. And so there's this liberation in, almost this ability to wash your hands of fate in a certain way and go, that's life.
Yeah. In 1,000 years, will people remember my name? And like you said, I think the other thing that really stuck with me is, will the people that will remember me even be remembered? like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. The people who remember you will be forgotten too. And then
That's awesome. That's yeah. You can tell you spent 7 years walking because you got some deep stuff in there, man. That's great.
yeah.
What was your most challenging day and what was your best day on the road?
Most challenging day. There's a lot of tough days out there. I would say there was two sections come to mind as challenging. Physically, the most challenging were the days in Costa Rica, where it was 100 degrees, 100% humidity, no breeze. Savannah and I would wake up at Savannah, my dog, if I hadn't mentioned it.
Yep.
She walked around the world. We would wake up at like 4 o'clock, start walking by 5. We would walk until 10 in the morning, and then it would be too hot to walk. And then we'd hide out until maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock, walk a couple hours, camp. It was just like insanely, brutally, oppressively hot and humid. It was sweating from the moment I woke up, going to sleep, sweating, waking up in the middle of the night, covered in sweat. It was just really brutal and not fun. And then especially there's a section that we were walking through these palm plantations for maybe 3-4 days, something like that. And it was great for camping in a certain way because you could just walk down these alleys of palm plantations and find somewhere very easily, set camp. It was great, but there'd be a million mosquitoes and wake up with like a tarantula on the tent and whatever else. And all these bugs are just loving all the shade and humidity and sitting water. So it was just physically, Costa Rica was so difficult. And then mentally, emotionally, I contracted a bacteria infection towards the end of South America. And then I walked a little bit of Iceland and then Ireland, Scotland, and in Ireland and Scotland, this infection that went from just really minor stomach aches to crippling stomach spasms where I would black out from how painful it was. I'd be on the ground just writhing in pain.
Yikes.
Couldn't see. And so it got really bad. And so I trained ultimately from Scotland to my cousin's home in London. Spent a month in and out of infectious disease. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Flew home, and eventually they couldn't figure out what it was that I had. So they just started throwing antibiotics at it. And it was like the third antibiotic we tried started to work. By then I had lost 45 pounds. You know, I had developed really bad colitis because my body was just attacking itself. I had a fungus in the esophagus. So I was just miserable for months and months and months. But it was when I got better, I picked up walking in Denmark and started going through Denmark and Germany. And I was physically kind of ready, not quite the shape I was in, but mentally and emotionally, it was such a nightmare to be back on the road, even though it was as easy as walking as you could get. You know, Germany had these great bike paths and it's very wealthy and I could get whatever food I wanted, clean water everywhere, easy camping. It was such a piece of cake. And then through Belgium and France, it was the same thing. But I was miserable because I had just been in agony for 5 months, basically nonstop. And so all my thoughts, which normally bend towards the optimistic side, were bending towards the pessimistic side. And you know, if the smallest thing went wrong, I was just like a wreck. I remember getting to this bakery in France in this little village, and I couldn't wait for like a croissant and cappuccino. I was so excited for it. And then I get there and it's closed because it's, you know, just a government holiday, whatever it is. I was just like fuming. I'm like screaming at this guy. It's like, you should not be this upset over this. And, you know, it was a bad few months. And it took really until I got onto the Camino in Spain that I got out of that, because all of a sudden, for the first time I walked, I had this community around me. And it kind of took me out of my head a little bit. And I was able to rediscover the joy of walking and being outside. And I would get to a cafe and there'd be another walker there and talk and chat and have a rattler in the afternoon and sort of just like, take things in again. And so that helped me get out of it. But I would say that section, Denmark down to Spain, where emotionally, mentally was definitely the worst section.
And the best?
Oh, the best. Yeah. Oh man. A lot of best. I would say for the pure walking aspects, I would say like Kyrgyzstan as a country was just incredible walking. I had horsemen and a guide and 2 horses, and we would just walk into the mountains, and Svano would be off leash, and it'd just be these pristine, untouched mountain valleys with crystal clear glacier water and, all these mountain peaks around you. It was just absolutely incredible paradise walking. But realistically also, like, probably when I was in the best mental state and the days that I were enjoying most were probably like right at the beginning when I was just beginning and I was so excited to be out in the world and living this dream that I had saved and planned and paid off loans for 8 years was finally happening. And so even though in the beginning I didn't know where to camp, I didn't know how much food to eat, I didn't know how to stretch for the walking, I was losing toenails and getting blisters and cramping up at night. It was like as happy as I've ever been because I was out there. I was doing it, this thing that I had dreamt about forever.
I think it's just so awesome. So if people want to, I guess we didn't talk about this, but you have a YouTube channel. People can go and check out some of those best and worst days on YouTube at the World Walk. So let's get to Q&A.
Q&A.
So Tom, these are just questions to get to know you a bit better. First question, hot or cold?
Man. I would say hot. Yeah, probably hot. I like the cold though. I mean, walking the cold is more depressing for sure. But also, I mean, the hot is also associated for me with like longer days, which is nice. Yeah, I can kind of rest. When I was walking, I could rest under a tree. But I love skiing. Snowboarding. I love snowboarding. I love the snow. I love the quiet of the snow and the peace that brings. But I would say overall, probably hot.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains. Yeah. Little crisper air, I would say. A little cooler. You get that nice mountain air. Quieter. For me, it's the Jersey Shore that when I think of beaches. And it's always so busy there, which is great. But, I want the quiet of the mountains.
Say hi to Snooki for me when you're there. If you could have a beer with one person from history, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Man, let's say one person, dead or alive. I mean, maybe I would say 2 people come to mind. Living Steve McCurry, who's Nat Geo photographer, took the photo Afghan Girl. I would love to have a beer with him. He just seems like a great, normal, well-traveled, humble person. I'd love to have a drink with him. And then dead, maybe be Marcus Aurelius, just to pick his brain, see what it's like to run the Roman Empire.
One of the boys.
Yeah.
What landmark or attraction around the world do you love the most?
I would say Cappadocia is fantastic in Turkey. It's this series of valleys there with this really soft limestone. And so there was these civilizations that had carved homes, caverns of multiple layers into the stone and could never really be overtaken because they're impossible to invade, essentially. It would have all these hidden traps and everything. But the valleys themselves are beautiful, and every morning they have balloons going up to see, hot air balloons going up to see the valleys from above. And you can also just have these really great hikes there and take refuge from the midday sun in these ancient houses that are built into the stone. I remember going for these walks with Savannah. That I spent a few weeks there, and we'd go for these walks every day. And then, when it got too hot or when we just got a little bored, I'd just go climb into one of these little hidden nooks, and you'd sit there, and no one else would know you're there, and you're cool, and you're looking out to the world. It's just a really surreal, magical place that I don't think there's anywhere else quite like it.
That's awesome. I've never been, but definitely on the list. What's something you never travel without?
Ooh, never travel without. I think for the walking, when I was doing that, it was like the Leatherman was probably the most useful. I mean, it's just a multi-tool, and you can use that as a hammer if needed. But, you just need to have something like that is just super versatile. Today, it's the eye mask because, I'm sleeping in a hotel or whatever at one of these speaking engagements. And if this little light is on, that just drives me crazy for whatever reason. The eye mask just guarantees the good night's sleep.
Eye mask, what is that, like an Apple product?
Yeah.
Which country has the best cuisine?
Ooh, best cuisine.
Cincinnati. Isn't there something with your spaghetti or something like that?
The Skyline chili.
Jesus Christ. I've heard it and I'm like, that sounds terrible.
Never had it. Yeah, not yet. We'll see if I make it out of here with having it. Turkey is definitely up there. Turkey had great walking food. It's very hearty, rich, this incredible kind of confluence of cuisines from around the world as well. And this really kind of self-assured, deep, ancient food. Georgia, right above it, is really fantastic too. It's a small country, so it doesn't travel as much. It's a country of like 3 million people, so it's harder to find a Georgian restaurant. But I think that holds up with any cuisine around the world. They use a lot of walnuts. It's similar in its influence kind of to Turkey, where you get some Middle Eastern influence, but then for Georgia, you get a little more Soviet, even Ukrainian kind of influences there. And so that's like, it is good. It's good, like hearty walking food as well. Good cold weather food, for up in the mountains. So yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, tough. You get some good cheeses, breads, the goulash, all that good stuff. Some soups. Yeah.
Yes, that's what you need.
Yeah.
What is your biggest travel pet peeve?
Travel pet peeve. Let's see. I would say the travel pet peeve is probably tourists particular, who expect the culture that you're in to bend themselves for you. And, when you're traveling abroad, you are a guest in this place, and you should be showing your respect to this place and allowing the culture to come at you in whatever form that may take. And of course, things are not going to be the same for you in Prague or Bogota as they are for you in the Twin Cities or in Philadelphia or wherever it is. And I think a lot of time, maybe not a lot of time, but I see some tourists who just have a little bit too much of this expectation that, why aren't you such and such a thing to me? Why is the food not this way? Why don't you speak English? And, part of the great joy of traveling is like being the idiot, is being the fool in a place and discovering a place. And to do that, to do that well, you have to go in with as little expectations as possible and allow yourself to see how this place does things differently than they do at home. The reason you travel is not to have the same experience that you have at home. The reason you travel is to experience what's different than home. And so I think there's a big difference also between like a tourist and a traveler. A traveler, I think, is someone who is better at, or who just has different expectations of a place. Again, being someone who allows themselves to be changed by a place and who is open to a place. And the tourist goes to get a certain experience. They go to see the Vatican and have photos of the Vatican. And they go to Paris to have this croissant and have French cuisine and get this certain thing out of it. So then they can come home and say, I've had this thing there. And this is what I had. And this is what I think about this thing. And so I think there's that difference. And travelers, I would say, are better at accepting the place for what it is and having less hubris. And the tourist, I think that expectation of extracting something from a place is what is my pet peeve, is that, you know, it's great if you can experience something and if you see a beautiful place and if you have this fantastic cuisine, but don't expect this place to give it to you just because you want it. And don't put your biases on a place because you're human. Try and avoid that if you can.
Yeah, it's a good one. Tell me your best travel hack.
The best travel hack would be get away from anywhere touristy. That is the main one. If you see it on Instagram, do not go there.
That's a great one.
If you've heard of it, don't go there. Land there and then go somewhere else. And go to a town. Go to a village. In Italy, I would say, you know, you can, the most fantastic place. Italy is an incredible country. It's fantastic. But the best of Italy is not the tourist places. It's the villages. Like all these little villages and these little restaurants and these cafes and these little villages are fantastic. So, for example, if you go to Italy, you fly into Rome, you know, take a train, and then even if you can, get off the train route as well. Rent a car and drive to some village where you'll be totally disconnected. And the goal of that is really to escape people like yourself and to be immersed in a place where people are different than you and where they probably don't speak your language and you feel that pressure of being an outsider. And then you have to really accept a place. So I would say get as far away from the tourists as possible, especially if you really want to experience a place.
That's some of the wisdom just peeking out of you. That's why I was so pumped for this section here, because I knew you'd have some awesome answers. This is for the remote workers, digital nomads, or those getting ready for their next big trip. Here's my best travel hack: finding a travel insurance that fits my lifestyle. SafetyWing offers travel medical insurance with the digital nomads, freelancers, and backpackers in mind. They have a truly ambitious mission to create a global social safety net for anyone regardless of where they happen to be born. What I really like about SafetyWing is that you're covered all over the world with one policy. You can get coverage for extreme sports and even coverage for your phone. As a backpacker or digital nomad, we never know what activities we may be doing on our trip, such as whitewater rafting, scuba diving, or paragliding, which are all activities SafetyWing covers. SafetyWing's insurance plan is a monthly subscription, so you're continuously covered and you can turn it off anytime. You can even buy it when you're already traveling. A little bird just told me that they also recently launched a new version of their Nomad insurance policy with $0 deductible and a new claim process that takes less than 5 minutes to fill in, which is awesome. So if this sounds like it'd be right for you and your adventures, check out the link in the show notes or the 2 Beers Till Take Off Instagram bio for the link, and consider SafetyWing travel insurance on your next trip. What's the most underrated country?
Right, Turkey. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it a bunch, but I think specifically for the Americans and the American mind, which sees the Star and Crescent on the flag, the Ottoman Empire, I think we have this association of this negative association of Islam and Turkey and terrorism in Turkey because it's a primarily Muslim country. But Turkey is far more secular and European than I think most Americans would expect. And the culture is so incredibly warm. And there was never a country I felt safer in than I felt in Turkey. When I would camp, I would sleep fantastic every night. And I really rarely worried about even where I'd camp, because I knew if someone found me, they'd be really nice and we'd have a great little talk, at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and it would all be fine. And then again, the cuisine is just incredible and fantastic. And there's also, it's been taken over so many times, and it was the center of the world so many times, that the architecture is unique only to Turkey as well. And it's just an ancient place. Some of the oldest archaeological sites are in Turkey. So I'd say Turkey, especially for the American, is way underrated. And I guarantee, I wouldn't, maybe not guarantee, but I would say just about any person who goes there will have a better time than they expected going into it.
That's a great answer. And I was actually looking to go to Turkey next year, possibly. I was just looking at like timing and travel, and because I want to do a marathon, and I saw that there's one that it's the only marathon in the world that technically crosses a continent. So you start from the Asian side, cross the bridge, I forget the name, but you end up on the European side. And it's it seems like, because you go by so many different landmarks and historical sites, so you're not even worried about, am I hydrating enough? You're just like, oh my God, look at this thing. Like,
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. In Istanbul, that would be fantastic. I love that. Yeah. When is that?
It's September, October, something like that, but it's in the fall.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That would be fantastic. Yeah. You should definitely, if you can. Istanbul's an incredible city.
Yeah. Where's somewhere you'd never go back?
I don't think there's anywhere I would never go back to. There's nowhere I would never go back to. Right? Like, is it Costa Rica, difficult country to walk through? Say Algeria was like a pretty jarring country culturally. It's a very closed off country. I had a police escort the entire time I walked through there. Damn. 45 days. So that was like challenging, and just always having eyes on me. The police escort was always very nice, and a lot of the time really helpful, giving me local tips and taking me to local restaurants, which I wouldn't have known about otherwise. And actually, I would love to go back to Algeria just to go into the Sahara, which I didn't get into. But that's the only one that I could think of that was like, like difficult in like a cultural sense. Uzbekistan was also culturally very jarring. Another country that is really closed off. Their previous dictator was hyper paranoid, even closed off the borders to Kyrgyzstan quite often. And there's really no, at least until recently, there was really no Western penetration into there. So going through there, I would go through these cities, Samarkand, Bukhara, Tashkent, and there's just no advertisements. And I would pass through these villages because the tourism laws had finally relaxed enough where you didn't have to stay at a hotel. Before, you had to stay in a hotel every night and be registered there. And so you couldn't really travel outside the city. So I was one of these first tourists who was kind of really able to get out of the big cities. And I would get through these villages, and I was almost always like the first tourist they ever met going through these places. And the strange thing that comes with that is that in these villages where there's no outside commerce coming in, there's no advertisements for like the barber or for the tea shop or for the restaurant. Everyone just knows that's where the restaurant is, or everyone knows that's where the barber is. And so I'd get into these little villages, and I would be walking around and be like, I know there's a restaurant here. Like, this is big enough little town that there's got to be a restaurant here, but I don't see any signs. And then I'd ask someone, say, oh, it's right over there. Go over there. I would just like someone's house. No, right there. Like, open that door, and you're like opening the door to someone's house, and all of a sudden there's 50 people inside eating, and you're like, what's happening? And so that was really jarring, but it was a different sort of jarring than Algeria, where Algeria felt a little bit more. It was such a devout country, and I had the police escort with me, and so it felt a little bit more like I was treading lightly, and versus Uzbekistan, where I was just kind of like what is this place? All the cars are in the main cities are white Chevys because they started this program to, develop an internal auto industry and then have these crazy high tariffs to prevent other cars from coming in. And then if you're outside of the city, they have these great Ladas, the old Russian, Italian cars. But it's just, Uzbekistan was just kind of like this, like, wow, what is this place? That kind of drawing. Whereas Algeria was a little bit more, it took more adjustment on my part to adapt to their culture. I'd say more than any other place.
Where did you experience the least friendly locals?
I think the people are friendly everywhere.
I know. This is the point of the question, the least friendly.
Yeah, the least friendly, I don't know. I mean, again, maybe America, honestly. And America still is really, really friendly. But there's this strain of like selfishness or I don't know what the right word would be, but there's this private property aspect in America that doesn't really exist in most other places.
There's not as much unity, maybe, like, you know what I mean? That it's like very much individualized.
It is individualized, definitely. I mean, I think living here, it feels like it really lacks community. Like the car culture in America just destroys places because everything is just parking lots and highways and everything else. And you don't have these piazzas and squares that exist in literally every other country. And so you don't have the natural ingrained community. So that's definitely part of it. But also say there's like this protectionist. There's this automatic defensiveness that we have that someone who is just out in the world, they must be out there being a bad actor. They must be doing something. Yeah. And so kind of in the US, I would say people almost always ended up being very nice. But more often than not, they would start on the defensive versus starting on the, oh, what are you doing here? Who are you? How are you? Do you need anything? In America, it's, what are you doing here? Why are you on my land? Why are you near my land? You're going to break into my house? You're going to, whatever it is. And so I would say like that initial stance is what differentiates America strangely. And maybe I'm just more judgmental of it because it's my home. But I think especially in the American West, it was really surprising to be in this, like, the most beautiful. I mean, truly, America is so incredibly beautiful. It is as beautiful as anywhere in the world. The Rockies, the West Coast are amazing. And it's crazy to think that there was just thousands of years of generations of Native Americans living in this beautiful land. And then you're going through it and it's every inch of it is fenced off and it's private property and a lot of gun ownership. You just go, man, what a bummer. Like, this is so beautiful. And now every inch is fenced off.
Yeah.
So I'd say that was America's maybe is, one of the more difficult ones.
Yeah. I feel like that sense of individuality or individualism and lack of community also exists in Canada. So I don't know if it's a North American thing, if it's a distance thing, because we definitely have a lot of land versus other countries or other continents. So it's definitely something that exists in Canada as well. Not as many guns though.
Yeah.
Where were you the most scared?
Most scared was definitely Central America in the beginning. Multiple reasons. Primary reason being I was new to walking abroad. And then secondary reason is that Central America is just objectively, especially when I was going through it, the most dangerous portion of the world, region of the world that isn't in an active war. And so I knew that going in, but then also when you first start traveling and when you're first going abroad, you really have a horrible sense of scale. And because every place is new and it's not like your home, you feel like it's dangerous. I remember meeting tourists, even in Italy, American tourists in Italy, who were asking me, is this neighborhood safe? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, like, you're fine. Walk around whenever. You will be fine here. And So it takes a while to get that sense of scale and just to see enough places and to experience enough places that you're able to judge them accurately. And so for me, when I first entered Mexico, I remember walking through this neighborhood and there being some bent iron fences, and the road was more rutted than I was used to, and there's a little more dust than I was used to, and the houses are concrete or cinder block. And then on the second story, a lot of them have rebar poking out of them. Oh my God, this is like such a dangerous neighborhood. This is crazy. I got to get through here. I got to get back out into the countryside. And I held on to that. Well, maybe I didn't hold on to it, but it took a while to relax in Central America. And then even through South America. It took me at least like a year being abroad until I had a good enough sense of when a place is just a little bit socioeconomically different than I'm used to versus an actually dangerous place. And in hindsight, one of these things that I learned later on, the rebar sticking out of those homes is like, it's a sign of aspiration. It's not that they're poor, or it's not that they're, like malintended. It's that loans are difficult to come by. And so they build the house one room, one story at a time whenever they have the cash. So they leave the rebar up, and then when they have the money, they build a second story. And you see it all over the world. You see it in Algeria, you see it in Turkey, you see it in Georgia, you see it everywhere. But at the beginning, I just didn't know that. And so I see the rebar, I see, concrete house, and oh my God, this is not my insanely wealthy, fortunate New Jersey suburb.
Yeah. Yeah, could you imagine just a house, rebar sticking out? We'd be like, what's going on? But no, like you say, it's just something that we might not experience in North America, but it's just normal the rest of the world. Yeah.
It takes time to develop that scale, but as you go, get better at it.
Some great folks. Oh, yeah. Listen, I posted on Reddit and Instagram that you were coming on, and obviously got a lot of people that were super interested. So this is a new segment. I guess people put in some questions for you, and I wonder if you get to a couple here.
Yeah, I love that.
So Spartan_Tibbs asks, how do you finance 7 years of travel?
So I saved for 8 years, basically. And the saving actually didn't work that great. I had student loans to pay off, so I paid off a ton of student loans. And then my parents were losing their house during the recession, so I gave them a ton of money to try and keep the house. That didn't work. And so by the time I left, I had enough money that I thought I could bleed out for 2 years and then get a sponsor. And then before I left, there was a couple articles written on me. And I was fortunate enough that this owner of Philadelphia Sign, local sign producer, they were just opening an international branch. They were looking for something to support. They were looking for a charity to donate into. They knew Anne-Marie, the source of sort of all this beginning. And so it was this great confluence of fortune, basically, where they said, all right, we'll, give you basically a stipend every 2 weeks.
Cool.
And donate $1 a mile into Anne-Marie's scholarship fund. And walking around the world also is like, it's very cheap. I hear like you're paying for food and the occasional hotel. This isn't like a lavish luxury lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so if you had $20,000 a year, you're living like a king. Especially at like walking, because you're spending no money most days or very little money. So if you have $20,000 a year, you are a king. So you pay through it the first 2 years primarily through sponsorship. And when I got to Europe, it was a little bit more expensive. I started a Patreon, and that helped pay for the more expensive walking in Europe. And then really during COVID, when I was stopped for a while and had to pay for these flights for different things. It was a combination of sponsorship and Patreon. But again, it's a very cheap lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that's a good idea. Engage your community, get a sponsor, or even if you're down the line, trying to still engage a sponsor who's maybe in the same line or that can kind of benefit from your story or co-benefit, right? So that's a great answer. Status Employer 9918 asks, do you feel more connected to society or more estranged during and after something like this? And how was your reintegration once you returned home?
Wow, great question. That's a good one. I say it's both. It's you change in good and bad ways from walking around the world and from just having this experience that's very different than most people and kind of seeing the world in a very different way than most people. And 7 years is a long time too. It's not like this is like a 6-month bike trip or even a year-long bike trip. 7 years is a substantial portion of my life. So it really changes you. And so I think just that alone is enough to separate me in a way that I don't enjoy. You know, I think I just have now different perspective on life that doesn't always relate. And I think also, you know, my girlfriend is an emergency resident doctor and she emergency medicine doctor. And so I spend a lot of my time with doctors, and these are basically the opposite of me, where these are people who have spent their whole life in front of a book and then just on this track of the next step, the next step, the next step, and on this train. And so I have a really difficult time relating with them. So maybe it's just that. But then also I do feel much more connected in a certain way, much more invested, because I've seen how important good systems are to the happiness of people. And for me, the one that I'm most passionate about, the one that drives me crazy the most in the US, and America is an incredible country. It's insanely wealthy. The people are very nice. Even if, you know, they start on the back foot, people are very nice, very generous people, donate more than any other country in the world. It's a great country. But the infrastructure here is horrific. It's all car based, and truly compared to every other country in the world, it's just so isolating. And so I feel much more invested in that, where I just like, man, if like, you just built some more bike lanes, if you narrowed some of these streets, if you added some more parks, if you allowed more apartments, like different zoning rules, you can make life much more enjoyable for people, even if they don't realize it, even if they think, you know, being in your car all the time is like the ultimate happiness. So in that way, I'm like more invested. I'm more invested in my neighborhood and, you know, more politically invested, I would say. Oh, and the reintegration, to get to the reintegration, very difficult. The first like 4 months I was on cloud 9, I was loving life. And then at a certain point, you realize, oh, like I have to like keep doing stuff. Like life goes on. After completing my ultimate goal, things kept going. And then it became, I was so used to having the world come at me by virtue of walking and being out in the world. And then all of a sudden, it's not just coming at you. And it took a long time to adjust to this like proactiveness, where I have to join clubs. I have to go out and, you know, ask people to play tennis, ask people to play pickleball. I have to go for a walk. I have to run into people. I have to like go to the coffee shop. You know, for the first few months after that afterglow wore off, I moved out to Seattle to be with Bonnie, girlfriend, and I would just sit in the apartment and be like, why isn't life happening to me? It was happening to me for like 7 years. Now why isn't it happening to me now? Yeah. And it really took a while to, you know, realize you have to go out in the world again.
I think it's also a lesson that even after you achieve your goal, life goes on, right? That like, sometimes you think, oh, once I hit this point, it's going to be so great and it's going to be so magical and nothing bad's going to happen. But it's like, I walked around the world and then at a point I was like, what's going on with my life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that really goes to show it's really about the journey, for however cliche that sounds. And has kind of bore out over and over and over again on the walk, where I would always be, you're always just like naturally, you're always looking forward to someplace, and it helps to look forward to someplace. But also when you get there, then you just look forward to another place, and it's just another place. And then some of the best moments, most of the moments are unexpected things. They're just like a campsite that I found in the Peruvian desert, and I had this cliff overlooking the Pacific. It was incredible, and I didn't plan for that. But so a lot of it is that journey, it's that in between, and that's where a lot of the joy is. And if you're not enjoying the in between, what are you doing? Because the in between is everything. The destination is such a small percentage of anything that you do that you better be enjoying it as you're working towards it.
Yeah, the journey's not just when you're walking around the world. It's also your day to day. Your time with your partner. Your you know what I mean. Before those big life moments happen, that we got married or we had a kid or all this stuff. It's the stuff before that. It's the stuff leading up to it. It's the stuff in between. That's what life is.
Definitely.
Yeah. Let's get to one last one, and then we'll get to the story. Let's go with Filmsy_agent2525 asks, did you get detained by the authorities in any country, and for what?
I got detained in Algeria when I landed in Algeria. Not malicious detainment, not because I was doing anything wrong, essentially, but Algeria is a difficult country to get into as an American. You need a letter of invitation from an Algerian in Algeria. And luckily, my ex-boss was Algerian. His mother still lives in the Sahara. She wrote me this letter of invitation. So when I landed at the port, first off, they're like, what are you doing? An American passport. This is crazy. What are you doing here? And immediately they're just like, wait over here. We're going to call the police. And so I waited with this policeman for these other policemen to come and basically sort out who's going to take responsibility for me in Algeria. That's the idea of having this letter of invitation, is that this person who's inviting you in is taking responsibility for your safety, for your enjoyment of the country. And Amar's mother was in the Sahara, so she couldn't be there to meet me. And so ultimately I had to get Amar's friend Rashid, who lived 300 kilometers away, 200 kilometers away in Algiers, to drive over.
Oh no.
And basically say, hey, I will take care of him, kind of thing. And then we talked out what my plans are, and I get to this hotel and I'm sitting with the local police, and ultimately it came to that I would just be the responsibility of every municipality. So that's how the escort kind of came about, where because I wasn't staying in one place, every town would assign me an escort, and then I get to the border of that town, and then they pass me on to the next one. So it was like 2-3 times a day I would go to a different escort. And so that was I'd say that was the detainment, was especially in the beginning. And the interesting thing is, it's not like Algeria is not a dangerous country. But is it like chicken and egg? Is it not dangerous because there's police everywhere and they provide escorts to pretty much any tourist coming in, or is it just not a dangerous country? I don't know. But yeah, it was fantastic. Algeria is great, and it was very hard to find dog food for Savannah, and so she was just eating beef pate and sausages. So she was in heaven too. She loved that. But yeah, that was the detainment among the story I'll tell.
Before we get to story time, if you've made it this far and you're enjoying this content, I'd ask you to like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review wherever you're listening, and you know what? Share it with a pal. As a true fan, check out Patreon for exclusive content. All links can be found on my Instagram bio at linktree.com/2beerstilltakeoff. Cheers.
Story time.
Yeah, so this is in southern Turkey, maybe 50 kilometers, maybe a little more than that, 70 kilometers north of Syria. I just left Gaziantep. This is during COVID. So Turkey is one of the few countries I could get back into, and that was large enough that I could walk around. And I was stuck in Azerbaijan. When a flight opened, I flew to Turkey. I thought, I'm just going to walk around, maybe do this big lap back to Istanbul. Who knows? I just need to buy myself some time until some other countries reopen. So I end up down in Gaziantep, which is this fantastic, bustling, great food city, one of the great food cities in the world. And as I'm walking east, I'm going towards the Mediterranean coast and towards Adana. And there's this mountain range in between. Basically, you have the plains and then you have the coastal region, the Mediterranean. And I had been walking these roads, some of them busy, some of them not busy, but I was sick of walking the roads. So I thought, I'm going to push over the mountains. I'm going to take this trail into the mountains. And it'll be fantastic and peaceful and quiet. And I'll be able to camp up there, and then it'll be all to myself. And I'll wake up in the morning, and it'll be cool, and I can make my coffee, and the rain will be falling off of the pine trees. It'll be great. And so towards the end of the day, I get to this mountain, and I walk through this little village, and I get up to the kind of start of the real path, like the end of the village is the start of the path up into the woods. And there's a shepherd there. And I say, hey, can I walk up there? And he's like, no, like, I don't know. I said, hey, can I walk up there? He mimes like a shotgun, shakes his hand. He says, no. It's hard to tell because I didn't have service, and so I couldn't translate. He didn't speak any English, but he was trying to tell me, you can't go up there. And I said, it's just a mountain. It's a little pass. I've done a million of these. I'm going to go up there, see what, get my nice campsite. And so pushing up this craggy path, I'm tired. Savannah's a little tired, walking off leash up ahead. We get about halfway to the top. A motorcycle comes down in neutral, and it's two guys in army fatigues, a younger guy and an older guy. And, they wave, keep going. And then a minute or two later, I hear the engine turn on. They come back up, ask for my passport. I say, why? Like, what do you need? Like, who are you? And it's military, tap the patch on the shoulder, give them a passport. It's okay. Give me the passport. They roll off again in neutral down the hill.
With your passport?
No. I gave back the passport. Okay. Yeah, gave back the passport. They saw, okay, he has the visa. It's fine. Let me go. And then another hour passes or so, and I'm just about at the top. I'm like 25 feet from the top. Another motorcycle rolls over the hill. Two guys on it. Guy in the back jumps off, jabs a shotgun against me, turns me around, pushes the shotgun against my back. And my first thought is, all right, my guts are going to get blown into this forest. My legs will be out on the trail. Will someone find Savannah? I should have kept a GPS collar on her, something. I should have kept a GPS on her, but my GPS won't move for a few days. People will see that, then my parents will fly in. And Savannah just needs to survive for like probably a week. She can survive a week. She'll stay with my body for a while, and then she'll go down and she'll get water from the village, but she'll come back. And it's pretty rainy up here, so she'll be okay for a week, and then my parents will find her. That's what I was thinking.
Oh my God.
And I'm also just like violently afraid, which is strange because I was held up at knife point in Panama, and it was much more like active, where I was trying to find a way out of it, and I'm kind of problem solving, and getting the shotgun pressed against me felt much more like I'm playing a game of tag as a kid, and someone opens the bush and they can tag you or they don't. Like, it's up to them. And it was just blackness, They got me. And so I'm shaking, like my hands are shaking. And also what was strange is like I thought I had resolved that, even when I was really violently ill from that bacteria infection. And I was honestly probably a month or two from dying, withering away. I was okay with it. I was saying, well, I lived as best I could. I walked down the Americas. I lived a great life. If I die, I die. But then in Turkey, with the shotgun against my back, I was like, I don't want to get shot. I don't want to die. And
I need to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl again.
Exactly. And so I look over to my right. I can't see the guy behind me. The other guy is already going through my things in my cart. And he's throwing stuff out. And very gradually, just as time goes on, I'm realizing, okay, if this was a thief, this was a common day robber, I would already either be shot or they would have grabbed the camera, which the guy saw. Definitely one of the most expensive things that he would have found. He would have grabbed that, put that away, but he's just taking stuff out. He's looking for something clearly that isn't there, or just going through my things. Saying, okay, like I'm probably not going to get shot. This isn't just a common thief. And still terribly afraid, but I get calm enough and my mind finally has something to focus on enough where I can turn, I look back to the guy behind me and I see he's pretty calm. And then the other guy asks for ID, identification, as always says. And then that gives me something even more to focus on and sort of calm my terror. And I'm able to signal the guy, hey, I'm going to go over and, open up the top pocket of this backpack. I can do that. Here's my license. He gets the license. He's like, where's the passport? So then I go over and I point to this bag in my cart where I keep Savannah's important paperwork, my laptop, and my most important paperwork. Kind of got it buried, so in waterproof bags, so it's safe. The guy finds my passport and he's looking at it and he's tapping it next to his ear to hear it. And he's like, no. No. I was like, what do you mean? No.
Yes.
That's my passport. Thomas, that's me. Thomas Turcich. He's like, American. Yes, American. They're visa is right there. And this is all standing back. I'm not having this argument with him, but I'm like, dude, it's there for you. And he doesn't believe it. And so he says, take your thing, clean up your cart, clean up your things. He has me basically put my things back into the cart and then walk up the hill with the cart up to where I was going to camp for the night. And the guy with the shotgun was following me. And the entire time I'm thinking, this guy's just going to shoot me. They're going to walk me up here and they're just going to shoot me and just leave me up there. That'll be that. And no one will know. And they're walking me up there because it's a better spot or whatever. And to get up there, the guy's just standing there with the gun pointed at my back. And I'm asking, I'm like, hey, can you come around front? It feels so strange to have it behind me and not being able to see it and know it's there and look back and see this guy standing there pointing it at me. The other guy is on his cell phone with his arm raised, trying to get a hold of someone. And so I slowly, enough time kind of passes where I start to do the same. I pull out my phone. I show, hey, it's just my phone. I'm trying to get any service to get the translator going and just have some sort of conversation with these guys to figure out what's going on. Probably a half an hour passes. It takes a long time for this guy to finally get some reception. And he's basically on speaker with his phone up in the air and he's talking. I only spoke a very little bit of amount of Turkish, just only the most basic stuff. I can't understand what he's doing, what the conversation is.
Shawarma.
Hangs up.
Shawarma.
Yeah. Merhaba. Yeah. And so he hangs up eventually, and then he whistles. And then there's this whistle back from somewhere in the forest. And then this pickup rolls into view. This white pickup rolls into view. This guy comes out, and he takes the shotgun from the other guy, cocks it, and points it at me. And I'm thinking, man, the other guy was actually the one I wanted with the shotgun, because this guy is dead serious and he is suspicious of me and I still don't know what's going on. And then the guy who took who had the shotgun before, he's saying, okay. And that's kind of reassuring, I guess, that he's saying, he's so calm. He's saying, okay. But the other guy is just staring at me, locked in on me and cocked, pointed, so dead set on me making the wrong move kind of thing. They have me load my stuff into the back of the pickup, and then the guy that got shotgun stands across from me. Me and Savannah sit in the back. We drive through this dirt road, along this dirt road, through the forest, so removed from everything, and eventually come to a substation in the middle of nowhere, like nothing else around it, but the substation is glowing and it's patrolled by military. So the gate opens, I go in, and there's like maybe like 10 military cadets, officers, whatever they are there. And I sit on the back of the bed, my legs hanging off. And they kind of form a semicircle around me. And then this guy comes from the car, the sergeant, who speaks English. And so finally I'm like, okay. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm walking. I'm just passing. I'm walking here. I'm just passing through. You know, I walked all these different countries, and he gets very fixated on my cart, and he's really suspicious of that. And he's saying, did you fly with this? What is this thing? Where did you fly from? You flew into Turkey with this? And all these questions. And then he's saying, you know, there's terrorists in this forest. He's talking about the PKK, which is, it depends on the country. In Turkey, it's classified as a terrorist organization. It's this Kurdish uprising that was trying to carve out Kurdistan, a part of Turkey, to be their own. And so it's this gray zone. But in Turkey, they're considered, you know, a terrorist organization. And they're saying there's bombings, you know, and there's terrorists up here. You know, what are you doing up here? There's no one else up here. You know, is that a bomb? But no, I didn't know any of this. I thought it would be peaceful coming up this road. None of this. He doesn't believe any of this. And he's the entire time suspicious. And this guy with the shotgun who passed off the shotgun is standing directly across from me. And he just has his hand on his pistol in his chest, just staring at me. Like, again, so locked and loaded. This is probably like an hour long, not like interrogation, like it's this super aggressive interrogation, but it's just me trying to prove that I am just a civilian and not a spy or anything else. And he's asking me these questions from all these different angles over and over and over and over again, trying to find some inconsistency.
He's like, you're from New Jersey, but you're an Eagles fan. You're supposed to be a Giants fan, dude. What's going on?
Yeah. So I'm explaining I'm South Jersey. That's a whole different world down there. And he doesn't believe the passport, doesn't believe the license. He's like, that could be faked. They can be faked easily. So I don't know what else to do to like prove to this guy. And eventually I'm sitting there long enough that I look at my phone and there's like a sliver of service. And I get like an idea that says, I'm going to open Instagram. So I hit Instagram and it takes forever to load. Gradually it loads like 3 photos in my profile. I say, look, this is me. And I had the blue check. And so I was like, look, this is me. And he's like, you are like, okay, this is you. And all the younger military look around them and they start going, oh, and they're pulling up their phone and start looking me up. And they're like looking at Savannah, they're pointing at Savannah. One rubs her head. And so all of a sudden, Instagram like saves my life, maybe. And they believe me. They believed Instagram. They didn't believe the passport. They didn't believe the license. They didn't believe anything I told them, but they see Instagram. And then all of a sudden I was verified in, you know, both ways. And the guy standing across from me that had the gun aimed at me the entire time, he puts the gun back and he, from the other pocket, pulls out a pack of cigarettes and pats out a cigarette and lights it. And I was like, okay, it's all good now. And then they let me go after a little bit longer. They let me go.
It's nothing like, 1, Instagram saving your ass. 2, making a couple new followers, I'm sure, right? And getting a hell of a story out of it.
Yeah. It was strange also because after I was held up at knife point in Panama and going through Central America, I was really paranoid. I mean, for years, I had to sit with my back to the wall and I had all this defensiveness built into me and I had to always see my car and I would keep my backpack on. But then in Turkey, I had been walking for so long at that point and I had seen how nice people are basically everywhere. And then also, ultimately, like this wasn't like a malicious, it wasn't a bad interaction. It was just this long miscommunication.
Yeah.
And so the next day after all this happened, and I was like as scared as I've been in years, and it was as intense as the walk had been in years, I was just kind of like, well, another day on the road. And it's just like life went on, and it was just just back to work.
Wow. That's wild, dude. What a story. Nothing like near death, eh? Just keep your keep you feeling young.
Oh yeah. Wake you up a little bit. Yep.
So Tom, listen, man, thank you so much for coming on. Can you remind people where they can find you, where they can check out your book, The World Walk?
Yeah. So Instagram is probably the way to follow along, The World Walk. And then the book is by the same title, The World Walk, A Grand Meditation, One Step at a Time. Should be in Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Got great reviews so far. People are very excited about it. I've only like 3 other people have read it besides my editor and the publisher. And it's got glowing reviews. I'm very excited about it. They're excited about it. So yeah, it's a great adventure story, and coming out October 8th.
Awesome. October 8th, folks, you can pre-order it now. Check it out. And Tom, do you have a few minutes?
Sure.
So folks, stay safe and don't forget to get travel medical insurance before your next trip. I personally recommend Safety Wing, and I've linked it to the show notes and my bio in Instagram. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Two Beers Till Takeoff. Do you want free additional content or just to stay connected with the show? Then give us a follow on our social media platform. That means TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. Are you in need of podcast production services, video editing, or anything in between? Then look no further than Strut Sound Productions, the official producer of the Two Beers Till Takeoff podcast. Music produced by Alex Gagné. Check out his work in our show notes. Voiceover done by Viking Leo K. See you next week on Two Beers Till Takeoff.